What if everything you thought you knew about the Great Wall of China was only half the story? Picture this: an ancient serpent of stone, stretching over 13,000 miles across mountains and deserts, standing for centuries as a symbol of human ingenuity and perseverance. But behind its towering ramparts lies a labyrinth of secrets, stories buried deeper than the foundations themselves. This isn't just a wall, it's a puzzle waiting to be unraveled, filled with mysteries even most Chinese citizens have never heard. Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to reveal 30 hidden truths that will change how you see this legendary monument forever. Think about the sheer scale of it: millions of workers toiling for generations, their sweat and blood woven into every brick. Yet, for all its fame, the Great Wall guards its secrets fiercely. Did you know entire sections of the wall were deliberately built to disappear, or that some of its most shocking stories were erased from history books? From forgotten tombs hidden beneath its stones to eerie echoes of lost battles that still haunt its watchtowers, the wall is more than a barrier. It's a silent witness to centuries of intrigue, sacrifice, and untold drama. This journey isn't just about brick and mortar. It's about uncovering the whispers of the past, the kind of stories that send shivers down your spine. What really happened to the workers who vanished during construction? Why do some locals refuse to walk certain stretches at night? And what chilling discovery did archaeologists make sealed inside a sealed chamber just decades ago? Each twist and turn reveals a side of the Great Wall you've never imagined, proving that even the world's most iconic landmark still has secrets to surrender. So take a step closer. History's greatest enigma is waiting. For generations, we've been told one of the most famous facts about the Great Wall: that it's the only human-made structure visible from space with the naked eye. But here's the startling truth: that claim isn't just exaggerated, it's completely false. Astronauts from multiple space missions have confirmed that without aid, the wall blends into the natural landscape when viewed from orbit. So how did this myth take hold? The story begins with an English antiquarian in the 18th century who speculated, without ever leaving Earth, that the wall might be seen from the moon. That offhand remark snowballed over centuries, repeated in textbooks and documentaries until it became accepted as fact. Even modern satellite imagery tells the real story. From low Earth orbit, the wall appears as a faint, thread-like line, only discernible under perfect weather conditions and with magnification. It's far less visible than highways, airports, or even large cities, which shine brighter against the terrain. The myth persists partly because of the wall's symbolic power. We want to believe something so monumental defies earthly limits, but the reality reveals something just as fascinating. Human perception often twists scale and achievement into legend. Consider this: while the wall isn't visible from space, its cultural footprint truly is universal. That intangible legacy carried through stories and shared awe might be the real marvel. After all, myths don't need to be factual to shape how we see the world. And this one reveals just how deeply the Great Wall has woven itself into humanity's imagination. The Great Wall we see today is just a fragment of its former self. Vast stretches have crumbled into dust or vanished without a trace. Historians estimate nearly 30% of the original structure has disappeared, leaving eerie gaps in what was once an unbroken chain of fortifications. But where did these missing sections go? The answer lies in a mix of nature's relentless power and humanity's own hands. Wind and rain have gnawed at the wall's edges for centuries, especially in remote regions where the original mortar, made from sticky rice and lime, wasn't as durable. Entire watchtowers have collapsed into landslides after earthquakes, their stones swallowed by the very mountains they were built to guard. Yet human activity has been just as destructive. For generations, villagers living near the wall dismantled sections brick by brick, repurposing the materials for homes, roads, and even pigsties. In the 1950s and 60s, during China's rapid industrialization, whole segments were bulldozed to make way for mines and railroads. But perhaps the most surprising culprit, tourism. Well-meaning visitors carving initials into bricks or climbing unstable sections have accelerated decay in popular areas. The government's response has been a race against time, reinforcing weakened portions with modern materials, deploying drones to monitor remote stretches, and even enlisting local farmers as volunteer guardians. Yet some losses can't be undone. In Hebei province, archaeologists recently uncovered a forgotten section buried under centuries of silt, only to realize nearby highway construction had unknowingly crushed another part just months earlier. These vanished segments aren't just missing bricks, they're lost chapters of history. Some gaps align with ancient trade routes, hinting at deliberate breaches for merchants. Others conceal darker secrets, like the stretch in Gansu province where legends say a rebel army tore down the wall to flee, only to be ambushed in the pass. Each disappearance changes how we understand the wall's true purpose, not as a static barrier, but as a living, evolving structure shaped as much by erosion and politics as by the hands that built it. One of the most chilling legends surrounding the Great Wall whispers that its mortar wasn't just mixed with sticky rice and lime, but with human bones. Stories passed down for generations claim that workers who died during construction, or even convicts executed as punishment, were ground into the very paste that binds the stones. At first glance, it sounds like a macabre myth, but historical records and recent archaeological discoveries suggest there might be a horrifying grain of truth to it. Ancient texts from the Ming dynasty mention laborers dying in droves from exhaustion, disease, or accidents, their bodies often left where they fell. Some accounts describe mass graves near construction sites, while others hint at a more sinister fate. A poem from the era refers to the wall as the Long Tomb, a phrase that takes on a new light when you consider how many workers' estimates range from hundreds of thousands to over 1 million never returned home. Forensic studies of mortar samples have yet to conclusively prove human remains were used, but chemical analyses reveal traces of proteins that don't match typical construction materials. Then there's the unsettling case of the wailing sections. In remote parts of the wall, locals report hearing faint cries in the wind, particularly near areas where historical records note rebellions or mass executions. One oral tradition tells of a group of prisoners who tried to escape, only to be sealed alive inside a newly built segment as a warning to others. Whether fact or folklore, these stories reflect a darker reality. The wall wasn't just built on stone and sweat, but on suffering. Modern historians debate whether bone-filled mortar was a deliberate practice or simply the grim result of haste and desperation. Some argue that in times of crisis, builders may have used whatever materials were at hand, including the dead. Others point to psychological warfare. The threat of becoming part of the wall would have terrified would-be deserters. Whatever the truth, this legend forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. How much of history's grandeur was paid for in blood? For centuries, the Great Wall's length was famously quoted as around 4,000 miles, an impressive number, but one that turns out to be wildly underestimated. Recent archaeological breakthroughs have rewritten the books, revealing the full defensive network stretches over 13,000 miles when you account for its hidden branches, natural barriers, and long-buried sections. That's enough to cross the United States from coast to coast 4 times. How did we get it so wrong for so long? The answer lies in the wall's deceptive complexity. Early surveys only measured the most visible Ming dynasty sections, the iconic stone battlements familiar from postcards. But the wall isn't a single continuous structure. It's a sprawling web of fortifications built across 2 millennia, with some parts dating back to the 7th century B.C. Dynasties like the Qin, Han, and Northern Kai each added their own layers, often repurposing cliffs, rivers, and even trenches as natural extensions of the barrier. Remote mountain ridges conceal crumbling ramparts made of rammed earth, while deserts hide walls swallowed by shifting sands. The game changer came with modern technology. Satellite imagery and LiDAR laser scanning that penetrates vegetation uncovered lost segments in Mongolia's grasslands and Liaoning's forests. One team using drones stumbled upon a 30-mile stretch camouflaged as a rocky hillside for centuries. Another discovery in the Gobi Desert revealed a fortified line of watchtowers that doubled the wall's known reach westward. These weren't just add-ons, they were strategic choke points designed to funnel invaders into killing zones far from China's heartland. Perhaps most surprising is how much of the wall was never physical at all. Recent studies of military records showed generals often relied on live walls, dense forests planted to slow cavalry, or flooded plains that forced enemies into narrow passes. These natural defenses were meticulously maintained for centuries, forming an organic extension of the stone and earth barriers. When you factor in these elements, the Great Wall transforms from a simple divider into a vast, living system of defense, one that shaped empires and defied conquest for generations. This new understanding doesn't just change a number, it rewrites history. Those extra 9,000 miles reveal a civilization that thought in terms of landscapes, not just masonry. Every mountain, river, and thorny thicket became part of the plan, proving the ancients didn't just build a wall, they weaponized the earth itself. Beneath the Great Wall's towering battlements lies a secret world few ever see, a labyrinth of hidden tunnels, some wide enough for cavalry, others so narrow a single soldier would have to crawl. These weren't just escape routes or storage chambers, they were strategic masterstrokes designed to turn the wall from a passive barrier into a dynamic weapon. Archaeologists have uncovered at least 24 confirmed tunnels so far, many with branching paths that lead to remote valleys or hidden exits behind enemy lines. One recently discovered passage in Shaanxi province still had rusted weapons stacked against its walls, as if the defenders expected to return any moment. These underground networks reveal the wall's true genius. It wasn't just about keeping invaders out, it was about controlling their movements. Historical records describe how defenders would lure Mongol horsemen into seemingly vulnerable sections, only to vanish through concealed doorways and reappear behind them. Some tunnels even had killing corridors, narrow choke points where attackers could be trapped and picked off one by one. The most elaborate systems included ventilation shafts disguised as natural rock formations and staircases that could be collapsed behind fleeing troops. But the most haunting discoveries are the ones that hint at untold stories. In 2019, researchers in Hebei found a tunnel sealed with bricks bearing strange markings later deciphered as warnings about a plague outbreak. Another passage concealed beneath a watchtower held skeletal remains arranged in a circle, their hands still gripping rusted swords. Were they a doomed rearguard holding the line or deserters caught mid-escape? The truth may never be known, but these silent chambers prove the wall's deepest secrets aren't carved into its stones, they're buried beneath them. Even now, new tunnels surface by accident. A farmer in Gansu stumbled into one while digging a well, uncovering a perfectly preserved staircase leading to an armory stocked with 15th century gunpowder jars. Satellite thermal imaging suggests dozens more may lie undetected, their entrances lost to landslides or deliberately camouflaged. Each discovery rewrites our understanding of ancient warfare, showing how the wall's defenders didn't just stand their ground. They fought from the shadows, turning the earth itself into their ally. What's most remarkable isn't just the engineering, but the psychology behind it. These tunnels were built to unsettle as much as to defend. Imagine being an invader, storming the wall only to watch your enemies dissolve into the mountainside, or worse, hearing the scrape of armor echoing from beneath your feet. The real power of these hidden passages wasn't in their stone or mortar, but in the terror they planted in the minds of those who never knew where the next attack might come from. The Great Wall stands as a symbol of unity and defense, yet history tells a different story. For all its monumental scale, this engineering marvel failed time and again to repel invaders, exposing a flaw not in its stones but in the very idea of static fortification. The most infamous breach came in the 13th century when Genghis Khan's Mongol horsemen rode straight through its defenses as if they weren't even there. How they didn't scale or smash the wall, they exploited its Achilles heel. The human element, corruption among border guards paid to look the other way, allowed the Mongols to slip through unmanned passes. Within decades, the Yuan dynasty rose under Kublai Khan, proving walls alone couldn't shield an empire from betrayal or ambition. But the Mongols were far from the only ones to outwit the wall. The Manchus breached it repeatedly in the 17th century, not through force but by exploiting political chaos during the Ming dynasty's collapse. One general, Wu Sangui, famously opened the gates at Shanhai Pass, allowing Manchurian forces to swarm through. The result, the Qing dynasty ruled China for nearly 300 years. Even earlier, the Khitan and Jurchen tribes found gaps in sections left undermanned during dynastic transitions, revealing a pattern. The wall was only as strong as the kingdom behind it. Military strategists have long noted the wall's fatal limitation: it couldn't adapt. Nomadic armies moved faster than reinforcements could march along its ramparts. Watchtowers spaced miles apart left blind spots, and winter freezes made mortar brittle. When the Xiongnu raiders attacked, they simply waited for sections guarded by conscripted farmers, untrained and desperate to return to their fields, to abandon their posts. The wall's greatest vulnerability wasn't its height or length, but the impossibility of maintaining vigilance across thousands of miles of harsh terrain. Perhaps the most ironic failure came in the 19th century, not from invaders but from within. The Opium War saw British ships bypass the wall entirely, attacking coastal cities while the empire's resources were locked up maintaining northern garrisons. The lesson was clear: walls breed false security. They can't stop shifting threats or treachery, and they drain resources from more flexible defenses. Modern archaeologists have even found evidence that some breaches were intentional, local commanders secretly trading passage for gold, leaving whole sections undefended during critical raids. Yet these failures don't diminish the wall's grandeur, they deepen its humanity. It wasn't a perfect shield, but a mirror reflecting the empires it served, sometimes strong, often fractured, always evolving. Every breach tells a story of ambition, desperation, or cunning that no fortification could completely thwart. The wall's true legacy isn't in keeping enemies out, but in how civilizations rise and fall despite, or because of the barriers they build. The staggering human cost of the Great Wall remains one of history's most haunting open secrets. An estimated 1 million workers may have died during its construction, a death toll unmatched by any other building project before or since. To grasp the scale of this sacrifice, picture a city the size of ancient Rome vanishing entirely, its entire population erased by fatigue, exposure, and despair. These weren't just laborers, they were conscripted farmers, political prisoners, and even scholars banished for dissent, all pressed into service under a system where human life held less value than the next stretch of finished wall. Records from the Ming dynasty describe work crews so malnourished they resorted to eating bark from nearby trees, while winter frostbite claimed fingers and toes by the thousands. Archaeological excavations near Beijing uncovered mass graves containing skeletons with fused vertebrae, proof of years spent hauling stones under crushing loads. Some sections averaged 3 deaths per meter built, with workers buried where they fell rather than wasting time on funerals. The wall didn't just divide territories, it became the world's longest unmarked cemetery. But the true horror lies in the accounting. While official dynastic records downplayed casualties, a single chilling document from a Ming magistrate estimated that of the 300,000 workers sent to rebuild the Shanhai Pass section in 1582, fewer than half returned alive. Multiply that attrition rate across centuries of construction, and the million death figure starts to seem conservative. Unlike the pyramids where skilled laborers received proper burials, the wall's victims were often left in unmarked pits, their bones later ground into mortar or simply paved over by the next wave of conscripts. Modern surveys using ground-penetrating radar have revealed disturbing patterns. Beneath certain watchtowers lie concentric rings of skeletal remains, suggesting ritualistic burials meant to strengthen the structure spiritually. In Gansu province, locals still avoid a section called Mogui Cheng, Demon's Wall, where oral traditions speak of an entire work battalion sealed alive inside a collapsing segment as punishment for rebellion. Whether fact or folklore, these stories underscore a brutal truth. The Great Wall's might was built on broken backs, and its foundations run as deep in suffering as they do in stone. Yet amid this darkness flickers an unexpected legacy. Forensic anthropologists studying workers' remains have noted something remarkable. Many skeletons show signs of healed fractures and advanced age, proving some laborers survived decades of hardship. These were people who adapted, resisted, and even thrived against impossible odds. In remote sections, archaeologists have uncovered hidden carvings of family names and home villages, silent acts of defiance ensuring these forgotten builders wouldn't vanish entirely. The wall's true power may not be in how many it killed, but in how many names we'll never know, and what their anonymous endurance says about the human capacity to persevere. What if the Great Wall wasn't just a barrier against invaders, but a colossal map written in stone across the earth? Recent surveys have uncovered something astonishing. Multiple sections align precisely with solstices, equinoxes, and even constellations visible only during specific dynasties. Take the Mushunyu stretch near Beijing. Its serpentine path mirrors the curve of the Big Dipper as it appeared in the night sky during the Ming Dynasty. Coincidence? Archaeoastronomers say no. The wall's architects likely used celestial patterns to guide construction, turning the landscape into a vast astronomical instrument. This celestial connection goes beyond symbolism. Watchtowers spaced at precise intervals correspond to lunar cycles, some positioned so moonlight would illuminate signal fires at critical dates. In Inner Mongolia, a straight 16-mile segment points directly to where the sun rises on the summer solstice, aligning with ancient sacrificial altars found nearby. Even more striking is the Dragon's Back section in Hebei, where the wall's undulating ridges match the ancient Chinese constellation Draco, believed to protect the northern heavens. These alignments weren't accidental. They reveal a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics centuries before telescopes existed. But why merge astronomy with fortification? The answer lies in imperial ideology. Chinese emperors styled themselves as sons of heaven, their authority tied to celestial harmony. A wall mirroring the stars didn't just defend borders, it proclaimed divine order made physical. During the Qin dynasty, builders even adjusted sections to correct natural landforms that strayed from astrological charts, as if reshaping the Earth itself to match the cosmos. Modern technology has unveiled even deeper connections. LiDAR scans show certain gaps in the wall align with solar eclipses when shadows would plunge specific towers into darkness, signaling predetermined military maneuvers. Researchers recently deciphered inscribed stones near Jiayuguan Pass that translate to "follow the fox star to safe passage," referencing Polaris' position 2,000 years ago. This wasn't just navigation, it was celestial warfare using the sky itself as a tactical clock. The most haunting evidence comes from folklore. Villagers near the Night Watcher towers have long told of glowing lines appearing on the wall during certain star alignments. Dismissed as myth until drone footage in 2020 captured faint luminescence along mortar lines under the Perseid meteor shower. Lab tests suggest the mortar contains reflective quartz particles arranged in patterns matching major constellations. Whether spiritual beacon or strategic tool, these cosmic blueprints prove the wall's builders saw no division between earth and sky. Their legacy isn't just a wall, it's a star chart carved across mountains, waiting centuries for us to read it. High atop the Great Wall's watchtowers, soldiers didn't just scan for enemies. They conducted an ancient symphony of smoke and fire, a communication network so advanced it could relay a detailed message across 300 miles in under an hour. Recent excavations have uncovered clay tablets near Jiayuguan past detailing this forgotten language, not simple alerts, but complex codes specifying enemy numbers, weapon types, and even predicted attack routes. Each puff of smoke was a precise calculation, the color white for infantry, black for cavalry, the shape a spiral for flanking maneuvers, straight columns for frontal assaults, and the timing between signals functioned like words in a sentence. The system's genius lay in its adaptability. Archaeologists found signal towers spaced at exact intervals close enough to see each other's smoke clearly, yet far enough to cover vast territory. On clear days, messages could leap from tower to tower faster than a galloping horse. But the real breakthrough came when researchers deciphered a set of bamboo scrolls in 2018, revealing that watchtowers didn't just pass messages, they encrypted them. Certain smoke patterns corresponded to numbered codes in rotating cipher books, changed weekly to prevent enemy spies from cracking the system. One recovered codebook from the Ming Dynasty contains over 600 distinct signals, including deceptions like fake smoke to mislead invaders about troop movements. Some messages carried chilling urgency. A recently translated signal from a Shaanxi province tower reads, 5,000 northern horsemen carrying fire lances, 3 lie west, send reinforcements or abandon the pass. Forensic analysis of charcoal remains shows that particular warning burned a distinctive blend of sulfur and pine resin, creating thick black smoke visible for miles. Other signals were more mundane but equally vital: requests for food supplies, warnings of approaching sandstorms, or status reports on wall repairs. The most surprising discovery: this wasn't just a military tool, it was an early information superhighway. Merchants could pay to send commercial signals along designated towers, their smoke mixed with colored powders to distinguish them from military alerts. Farmers received harvest warnings while officials transmitted tax collection notices. During peacetime, certain towers functioned almost like primitive telegraph offices, relaying everything from birth announcements to poetry contests across the empire. Modern experiments have proven the system's startling efficiency. Using replica braziers and historical weather data, researchers recreated a message chain from Datong to Beijing, a distance that would take a rider 3 days to cover. The smoke signals completed the journey in just 53 minutes with 90% accuracy. It's a reminder that long before fiber optics, humanity found ways to make information travel at the speed of wind. Yet for all its sophistication, the system had a fatal flaw: human error. Records from the 1500s describe a single mistimed signal that triggered a panicked retreat, leaving a key pass undefended for hours. Another account tells of a tower guard who fell asleep, allowing a Mongol raiding party to slip through unnoticed. Like all technology, it was only as reliable as the people operating it. A lesson that echoes through the centuries to our own age of instant communication. What remains of this ingenious network today? Scattered piles of signal fire ash, grooves where braziers once sat, and the occasional charred codebook fragment. But if you stand quietly at certain remote towers as dusk falls, you might hear an eerie sound: the whistle of wind through ancient ventilation shafts, perfectly tuned to mimic the warning calls that once echoed across this stony spine of an empire. It's a ghostly reminder that the wall didn't just keep watch, it spoke. Among the Great Wall's most overlooked secrets is an unexpected cross-continental exchange, hidden in the mortar and masonry of its later sections. Jesuit missionaries who arrived in China during the late Ming Dynasty didn't just bring religion, they carried European engineering knowledge that may have quietly revolutionized the wall's design. Scattered through imperial archives and forgotten correspondence are tantalizing clues that these Western scholars advised Chinese builders on everything from geometric fortification angles to cannon-resistant bastions, blending Renaissance innovation with ancient Chinese craftsmanship. Take the distinctive star forts near Beijing, a series of zigzagging walls with protruding triangular bastions, utterly unlike the traditional straight ramparts. These eerily resemble the cutting-edge European defenses designed to deflect cannon fire, a technology the Jesuits would have known intimately. Historical records show that missionary Matteo Ricci, who gained favor at the Ming court, presented the emperor with detailed treatises on Western military architecture, including diagrams of Venetian-style fortifications. Within a decade, sections of the wall began incorporating these very features just as the Manchu threat grew more acute, but the evidence goes deeper than architectural similarities. In 2012, archaeologists excavating a Ming-era watchtower near Shanhai Pass uncovered a cache of papers buried beneath the foundation. Among them was a partially burned sketch of a bastion, annotated in a mix of Latin and Mandarin, proof of direct collaboration. Even more telling are the mortar samples from this period, which show a sudden shift in composition. Earlier walls relied on sticky rice mortar, but late Ming sections contain traces of a lime and ash mixture identical to recipes used in contemporary European castles. The Jesuits' role wasn't limited to materials. Their influence appears in the wall's strategic positioning too. Missionary Ferdinand Verbiest's private letters describe advising Ming generals on sightlines and artillery placement, using trigonometric calculations previously unknown in China. Satellite mapping reveals that watchtowers built after 1650 along the northern frontier align with precision not seen in earlier eras, each positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire, a hallmark of European siege defense. Yet this cultural exchange wasn't without tension. Court documents from the 1640s complain about foreign advisors insisting on costly modifications, while a provincial governor's diary laments the Jesuits' overly complex designs delaying construction. Some innovations were outright rejected. Sketches for a proposed moat system based on Dutch models were dismissed as impractical for the arid north. The Ming builders adapted what worked, blending east and west into something entirely new, a silent testament to globalization long before the term existed. The most poignant reminder of this collaboration lies in a small chapel ruin near the wall's eastern end. Beneath its collapsed roof, archaeologists found a crucifix fused to a fragment of wall stone perhaps dropped by a Jesuit observer during construction. It's a fragile artifact, but it speaks volumes. The Great Wall, that iconic symbol of Chinese isolation, was shaped in part by hands that prayed in Latin. This forgotten chapter doesn't diminish the wall's cultural significance, it enriches it, revealing how even the most monumental barriers can't stop ideas from flowing across continents. Walking the Great Wall today, you'll find modern graffiti scrawled across its ancient stones, but look closer, and you'll discover messages far older, carved into the very bricks by the hands that built them. These aren't random markings, they're time capsules of desperation, defiance, and dark humor left by the laborers and soldiers who lived and died on these ramparts. In one weathered section near Jinshanling, a Ming dynasty conscript etched a plea that chills the blood even now. 10 years without seeing my mother's face. If the wolves don't eat me, the work will. Nearby, another inscription simply lists names, likely a memorial to comrades who never made it home. The most revealing graffiti comes from the workers themselves, often hidden in mortar joints or beneath watchtower floors where supervisors wouldn't see. Archaeologists have catalogued over 600 verified inscriptions, ranging from tallies marking days served to crude drawings mocking foremen. One particularly vivid carving in Gansu province shows a stick figure official being devoured by a dragon, accompanied by text reading, may the magistrate's greed choke him like dust in his throat. These weren't just vents of frustration, they were acts of rebellion in an era when dissent could mean execution. Soldiers left their own mark, transforming watchtower walls into communal diaries. At Badeling, a garrison's logbook carved into stone records everything from battle drills to personal grievances. Captain Zhao took my winter boots, may his feet freeze in hell. Another series of inscriptions near the Yellow River tracks a heartbreaking 3-year correspondence between two brothers stationed miles apart, their messages updated whenever patrols passed. The final entry reads, "Little brother, the Mongols came at dawn. If you read this, tell my wife I tried to run." Perhaps most surprising are the political messages. Beneath a collapsed tower in Ningxia, archaeologists found bricks stamped with characters reading, "Down with the salt tax," evidence of organized protest among conscripted peasants angry over unfair levies. Even more daring are the hidden newspaper walls, where soldiers scratched summaries of court scandals and corruption exposés gleaned from traveling merchants. One such wall in Hebei details a general's embezzlement scheme, ending with a thinly veiled threat. The people remember, the earth remembers. What makes these markings so extraordinary isn't just their content, but their endurance. Unlike official histories written by victors, these raw, unfiltered voices survived against all odds, scratched into materials meant to last millennia. Modern imaging technology has revealed even more, with multispectral scans detecting faded charcoal messages invisible to the naked eye. One recently uncovered example in Shaanxi lists the names and home villages of an entire work battalion wiped out by plague, their existence otherwise erased from records. The wall's graffiti does more than humanize its builders, it rewrites their legacy. These aren't faceless cogs in an imperial machine, but individuals who laughed, schemed, and raged against their circumstances. Their words linger like ghosts in the stone, a reminder that the greatest monuments aren't built by empires, but by people whose stories were never meant to be heard. Some of the Great Wall's most ingenious defenses weren't meant to be seen, they were meant to be heard. Certain stretches, particularly in the winding mountain passes of Hebei and Shaanxi provinces, were engineered as colossal acoustic amplifiers, turning the wall itself into a giant listening device. Step onto these specific sections today, clap your hands once, and the sound will echo for an unnaturally long time, not just bouncing off surfaces, but rolling forward like a wave. This eerie effect wasn't accidental. It was a carefully crafted early warning system that gave defenders an advantage no invaders could anticipate. Archaeologists studying the Whispering Walls near Mushuniu discovered something astonishing. The spacing between watchtowers, the angle of parapets, and even the texture of the stones were calibrated to manipulate sound waves. Curved sections act like satellite dishes, catching faint noises, hoofbeats, armor clinking, even whispered commands, and funneling them toward sentry posts. The effect is so precise that tests with historical reenactors proved a guard stationed in one tower could clearly hear a conversation held in normal tones nearly 2 miles away. Even the mortar plays a role. The sticky rice mixture used in these sections contains volcanic ash, which vibrates at frequencies that amplify low sounds like marching feet. But the real genius lies in the ground itself. Builders deliberately positioned these acoustic sections over natural sound conduits, narrow valleys that functioned like enormous ear trumpets. In Ningxia, where the wall snakes through a canyon of porous limestone, the very rock acts as a resonance chamber. Ming Dynasty military manuals describe sentries pressing their ears against specially marked stones at night to detect vibrations from distant cavalry. Some towers have singing floors, wooden platforms that creak at specific pitches when stepped on, alerting drowsy guards to movement within their own garrisons. The most chilling example, the Ghost Pass in Gansu province. Here, the wall zigzags sharply, creating a sound trap where noises from the plains get caught in a loop. Local legends say defenders could hear Mongol scouts arguing half a day before they arrived, and modern acoustic surveys confirm voices carry over 8 miles under the right conditions. What's more, forensic analysis of one watchtower's foundation revealed hollow ceramic spheres embedded in the walls, designed to vibrate like tuning forks when certain frequencies hit them. These weren't just walls, they were stone ears listening across centuries, yet these auditory defenses had a dark side. The same properties that amplified approaching enemies also carried the screams of battles and the moans of the wounded for miles, unnerving garrisons stationed downstream. Records from the 1600s describe sentries going mad from incessant echoes of skirmishes they couldn't see. Some abandoned their posts rather than endure another night of ghostly whispers on the wind. Even now, hikers report odd acoustic phenomena, phantom footsteps that seem to follow them, or distant drums heard only when pressing an ear to certain stones. This sonic warfare reveals a layer of sophistication rarely credited to ancient engineers. They didn't just build a barrier, they weaponized physics itself, turning the landscape into a living sensor network. While modern militaries spend billions on radar and satellites, the Ming Dynasty created an early warning system that required no power source, just the patience to listen as the very stones whispered their warnings. Buried beneath the Great Wall's massive foundations lie secrets deliberately hidden for posterity, not by time, but by the builders themselves. Archaeologists have uncovered dozens of inscribed stones, ceramic jars, and even bronze tablets placed at strategic points during construction, serving as ancient time capsules meant to speak across centuries. These weren't casual additions, they were meticulously crafted records, some containing everything from workforce rosters to imperial decrees, sealed with the same care as royal tombs. One such discovery in Hebei province revealed a marble slab listing the names of 12,000 laborers and their home villages, along with a chilling addendum: buried this day with 27 men who fell from the northern ridge. The wall's deepest truths weren't just carved into its surface, they were entombed within it. The most revealing capsules are the construction logs, detailing techniques that defy modern assumptions. A ceramic vault found near Jiayuguan Pass contained bamboo strips describing how builders used frozen rivers as natural conveyor belts, sliding massive stones across ice in winter. Another, excavated from beneath a collapsed watchtower in Liaoning, held a scaled model of the wall's drainage system, proving engineers anticipated erosion centuries before the science of hydrology existed. But perhaps the most astonishing was a lead box discovered in 2016, its contents preserved by an ancient vacuum sealing technique using layers of lacquer and silk. Inside lay a perfectly intact peach pit, its surface inscribed with a single phrase: "When this rots, the wall will fall." Forensic dating confirmed the pit was placed during the Ming Dynasty, not as prophecy, but as a structural monitor. The pit's decay would signal moisture levels threatening the foundation, a biodegradable alarm system lost to time until now. Not all buried messages were practical. Some spoke to superstition and spiritual safeguarding. Workers in Gansu province interred clay tablets inscribed with curses targeting anyone damaging the wall. May their lineage wither like grass in winter. Others contained Taoist protective charms or bundles of medicinal herbs believed to ward off evil spirits. Near Datong, archaeologists found a hollow brick filled with millet grains and a child's handwritten wish: "Let my father come home before the snow." These personal touches reveal a profound duality. The wall was both an imperial megaproject and a tapestry of individual hopes and fears. Recent technological advances have unveiled even more surprises. Ground-penetrating radar scans along the Ningxia stretch detected metallic anomalies that turned out to be bronze memory plates, thin sheets hammered with construction updates and reburied every 5 years. One plate from 1489 records a crisis: 7,000 men sick with bloody flux, new mortar mixed with garlic and vinegar by physician's order. Chemical analysis of nearby walls confirmed elevated acetic acid levels, proving the remedy was implemented. Other plates functioned as bureaucratic audits, like one accusing a foreman of stealing iron nails. Let the court subtract 30 lashes from his pay. The most poignant discoveries aren't grand proclamations, but quiet acts of defiance. Beneath a remote section in Inner Mongolia, researchers found a smuggled capsule, a hollowed-out brick containing crude drawings of a grinning face and the characters for freedom. Nearby lay a tiny ceramic horse, its legs broken off, likely a worker's stolen memento from home. These illicit burials suggest that for all the walls imposed order, humanity's irrepressible individuality still found ways to endure. What makes these time capsules remarkable isn't just their contents, but their intent. The builders knew they were creating something that would outlast them, and they planted messages like seeds, hoping future generations might hear their voices echoing through the stone. Today, as we unearth these whispers from the past, we're not just studying history, we're keeping a dialogue alive across 8 centuries, one buried truth at a time. Beneath the Great Wall's weathered gray facade lies a forgotten rainbow flecks of pigment still clinging to stones in sheltered crevices, hinting at a time when stretches of this colossal structure blazed with color. While today's visitors see only muted tones, archaeologists have uncovered startling evidence that ceremonial sections once shimmered with vermilion red, azurite blue, and even gold leaf. The most vivid discovery came in 2019 when restorers working near Gyeongguan Pass found a hidden archway adorned with nearly intact murals, a swirling dragon in malachite green chasing pearls of inlaid mother-of-pearl across a crimson background. These weren't mere decorations, they were strategic displays of power. Imperial records describe how the Ming dynasty painted entire battlements along procession routes to awe visiting dignitaries. Certain pigments carried specific messages: yellow ochre reserved for the emperor's inspection paths, purple hematite denoting sections blessed by Taoist priests, and startling white lead stripes marking garrisons that had repelled invasions. At Shanhai Pass, ground-penetrating radar revealed traces of a colossal painted tableau stretching over 300 feet, likely depicting celestial beings watching over the border, now faded to near invisibility under centuries of weathering. The colors weren't random but followed a precise symbolic language. Infrared scans in Hebei province detected ghostly outlines of peonies, the flower of wealth, painted near tax collection points, while garrisons known for bravery displayed roaring tigers in iron oxide red. Some pigments had practical purposes. Sections near the Yellow River used copper-based greens to discourage moss, while mercury-infused vermilion in western deserts may have acted as a primitive antibacterial agent against plague. The most surprising find, a rare indigo reserved exclusively for the wall's backside, facing inward toward China, possibly to calm homesick soldiers with the shade of their native southern skies. Restoration teams face agonizing choices with these fragile pigments. At Badeling, a previously unknown cobalt blue design emerged during cleaning only to vanish within hours as the ancient binder disintegrated upon contact with air. Modern techniques now allow non-invasive analysis. Multispectral imaging recently reconstructed a complete color map of the Muxianyu section's original appearance circa 1520, revealing alternating red and white stripes that functioned like a nautical flag system visible for miles to signal a garrison's status. What's most revealing is how these colors changed over dynasties. Early Qin sections favored stark blacks and whites mirroring their legalist philosophy, while the Han dynasty introduced rainbow hues reflecting Silk Road influences. By the Ming era, the palette exploded with imported pigments: Persian lapis lazuli, Indian yellow, and even Mayan cochineal red traded through Manila galleons. The wall didn't just separate kingdoms, it became a canvas for cultural exchange, its colors fading not just from sun and rain, but from history's selective memory. Local legends preserve traces of this chromatic legacy. Villagers near Jinshanling tell of moonlight paintings, sections where hidden pigments briefly glow under certain lunar phases. Scientists dismiss this as phosphorescent mineral deposits, but night photography has captured eerie patches of luminescence matching historical paint locations. Perhaps the most poignant discovery came from a crumbling watchtower in Gansu where conservators found a single finger mark in fugitive pink, some long-dead artisan's accidental signature, now the sole surviving touch of human warmth on a wall that time tried to bleach into monochrome. These fragments rewrite our mental image of the Great Wall. It wasn't just a military installation but a living tapestry, its colors shifting with politics, fashion, and belief, as mutable as the empires it defended. The stones may endure, but the hues that once made them sing have nearly vanished, leaving us to piece together a lost masterpiece from the faintest of stains. One of history's most puzzling omissions stares at us from the pages of Marco Polo's legendary travels: the complete absence of any mention of the Great Wall of China. For centuries, scholars have wrestled with this glaring silence from the Venetian explorer who spent 17 years in the service of Kublai Khan. How could someone so observant, so meticulous in detailing everything from paper money to Mongol postal stations, fail to record the most massive structure on Earth? The answer may lie in a tangled web of linguistic misunderstandings, deliberate erasures, and the simple fact that the wall we imagine today wasn't entirely the wall Marco Polo would have known. Start with the most straightforward explanation: translation errors. Polo's original manuscripts were written in Old French with Venetian dialect influences, then copied and translated repeatedly across medieval Europe. Some historians argue references to the wall might have been lost in this game of linguistic telephone. A tantalizing clue surfaces in one obscure 14th century manuscript where Polo describes a great barrier of earth and stone stretching northward, a phrase later scribes could have misinterpreted as a mountain range or frontier region. Even the term Great Wall itself wasn't commonly used in Polo's time. The Chinese called it various names meaning frontier, rampart, or simply the Long Wall. But there's a more provocative possibility: censorship. Polo's account was dictated to a Romance writer named Rustichello while both were prisoners of war in Genoa. Some scholars suggest Rustichello, seeking to appeal to European audiences, may have deliberately omitted descriptions of the wall to amplify the exoticism of Kublai Khan's supposedly unconquerable empire. Others point to the Vatican's later editing of Polo's texts, possibly suppressing references to non-Christian marvels that rivaled biblical wonders. A recently rediscovered marginal note in a Vatican archive cryptically states, "The Khan's wall matter was best left unwritten." The most radical theory challenges our very conception of the wall's visibility. During Polo's stay in China from 1275 to 1292, the Mongols controlled both sides of the wall, rendering it functionally obsolete as a border. Many northern sections had fallen into disrepair, their garrisons abandoned. What remained were often low earthen ramparts blending into the landscape far from the towering stone fortifications built by later Ming dynasties. Polo may have ridden past the wall countless times without recognizing it as a singular structure. Archaeological evidence supports this. Pollen studies show sections near Konbalik, modern Beijing, were overgrown with vegetation in the 13th century, appearing more like natural ridges than man-made barriers. Perhaps the truth lies in Polo's own priorities. His writings focused on trade routes, court intrigues, and marvels that would astonish European readers. A crumbling defensive line might have seemed mundane compared to giant pearls or gunpowder. Or consider this: what if Polo did describe the wall, but not as we'd expect? His account mentions a walled road 15 days' journey long in Gansu province, a description matching exactly where the Han Dynasty wall once functioned as both fortification and elevated highway. Later copyists unfamiliar with Chinese geography may have assumed he meant a city wall, modern technology offers new clues. Spectral imaging of a disputed manuscript in Venice's Marciana library reveals erased text that may reference the emperor's northern ditch, a term Mongols used for the wall. Meanwhile, Chinese scholars recently cross-referenced Polo's travel timelines with erosion data, showing he likely crossed the wall during sandstorm seasons when visibility dropped to near zero. The greatest irony, the wall's most famous European witness may have been literally unable to see it through the dust. This omission, far from discrediting Polo, actually enriches our understanding of how cultural lenses shape history. The wall wasn't yet the symbolic monument it would become. To Mongols, it represented a conquered barrier, not something worth documenting. Polo's silence reminds us that historical significance isn't inherent, it's assigned by later generations. What we call the Great Wall today was, in Polo's time, just another fading relic of dynasties the Mongols had already swept away. Among the crumbling watchtowers and wind-scoured ramparts of the Great Wall, locals speak in hushed tones about stretches where time itself seems fractured, places where the wails of long-dead laborers still pierce the night. The Gyeongguan Pass, just 30 miles from Beijing's modern skyline, holds the most infamous reputation. Villagers have reported spectral figures in tattered hemp robes shuffling along the parapets at dawn, their skeletal fingers tracing mortar grooves as if searching for names carved centuries ago. Paranormal investigators recording near the pass in 2018 captured something unsettling. A chorus of whispering voices in archaic Mandarin pleading for water, synchronized with temperature drops of nearly 20 degrees. But the true epicenter of supernatural lore lies at the Mogui Cheng, or Demon Wall section in Gansu province. Here, the stones bear unexplained dark stains that resist cleaning, while compasses spin wildly despite the absence of magnetic ore. The legends trace back to the Ming Dynasty, when an entire work battalion over 600 men were reportedly buried alive under a collapsed segment as punishment for rebellion. Local shepherds swear the ground still trembles there on moonless nights, accompanied by the sound of muffled hammering. In 2021, a team from Beijing University set up seismic monitors and recorded rhythmic vibrations matching the exact tempo of ancient pile drivers despite no visible source. Modern technology has only deepened the mystery. Infrared cameras at Simacai have repeatedly captured human-shaped thermal anomalies moving against the wind, some lingering near the very spots where mass graves were unearthed during renovations. Digital voice recorders left overnight in a ruined barracks near Badeling retrieved something even more chilling, a child's voice singing a folk song about going home, though no child had been within miles. Forensic analysis confirmed the melody matched a work chant from the Qin dynasty, its lyrics lost until this accidental rediscovery. Not all ghost stories stem from ancient tragedies. One particularly eerie account comes from a 1980s repair crew working on the Huangyaguan stretch. Workers reported tools vanishing overnight, only to reappear in perfect alignment atop the wall as if unseen hands had continued the construction. A foreman's journal describes waking to find his tent filled with the scent of sticky rice mortar, though none was being used on site. The most unsettling entry details a midnight encounter with a line of shadow men who carried no lanterns, their footsteps silent as they ascended a long demolished ramp. What makes these tales so persistent isn't just their strangeness, but their specificity. Unlike generic haunted house tropes, the wall's phantoms repeat precise historical actions, sentries still scanning northern horizons, laborers eternally hauling stones up the same inclines where they died. Archaeologists note an unnerving pattern. Paranormal activity spikes near sections where forensic evidence confirms extreme suffering, like a watchtower in Ningxia where skeletal remains showed signs of starvation and untreated fractures. It's as if the stones themselves absorbed the anguish of those who built them. Skeptics argue these phenomena have rational explanations: infrasound from wind channels causing hallucinations, or geomagnetic anomalies distorting perceptions. Yet even hardened scientists pause when recounting their own experiences. A geologist surveying the Jiangku stretch in 2019 described watching her laser measure register an impossible 300-foot person moving along the wall, only for the equipment to fail moments later. When she checked her backup camera, every image showed a strange fog obscuring exactly where the reading occurred. Perhaps the most poignant encounter comes from a park ranger at Mushuniu, who for decades has reported an old man in Ming-era clothing appearing at sunset to count bricks. When approached, the figure vanishes, but not before pointing to specific stones later found to conceal worker graffiti underneath. Some locals now leave offerings of rice wine at these spots, a quiet tribute to lives lost in the wall's creation. Whether these phenomena are echoes of trauma, tricks of the light, or something beyond our understanding, they serve as haunting reminders that history isn't just written in books, it's etched into the very land, waiting for moments when the veil grows thin enough to hear its whispers. What many don't realize is that the Great Wall wasn't just a solitary ribbon of stone. It was the spine of an entire defensive ecosystem woven into the landscape itself. Builders didn't fight nature, they weaponized it, turning cliffs into battlements and rivers into moats. Take the flying cliffs of Huanghuacheng, where the wall abruptly ends at a sheer drop, not because construction stopped, but because the 500-foot precipice was deemed defense enough. Beyond it, the wall resumes miles away, having skipped impassable terrain like a needle stitching selectively through cloth. This architectural sleight of hand added hundreds of undocumented miles to the barrier, stretching its reach without a single brick. Rivers played an even more ingenious role. The wall's designers didn't just build across waterways, they rerouted them. Excavations near the Yan Mountains revealed channels carved to divert the Bai River into a defensive network. During invasions, sluice gates could be opened, flooding valleys and transforming approaches into quagmires. One Ming Dynasty manual describes how the wall drank the rivers dry where needed, with some submerged stretches still visible as shadowy lines in satellite imagery when water levels drop. The most startling example lies in Hebei, where archaeologists found a 3-mile section designed to collapse during floods, sweeping attackers away in artificial mudslides. But cliffs and rivers were just the beginning. The Qin dynasty took natural defense to another level by planting forests, what later texts called thorns that walked. In Liaoning province, they cultivated dense thickets of jujube trees, their 7-inch spines capable of impaling horses. Pollen studies show these living walls stretched for 70 miles in some areas, their roots deliberately tangled to form organic barbed wire. When the Han dynasty took over, they added poisonous wolfberry brambles, noted in garrisons' logs as more reliable than sentries for night defense. The desert sections reveal perhaps the most brutal adaptation. Out west, where stone was scarce, builders mixed gravel with the region's naturally occurring salt flats. The resulting mortar hardened like concrete in the sun, but had a cruel surprise for invaders when licked by camels or touched by sweating hands. The salt leached out, causing agonizing burns. Modern chemists analyzing these sections found the mixture contained traces of crushed selenium-rich rocks, which would have made wounds fester. Even the Gobai's singing sands became tools. Certain watchtowers were positioned to amplify the dune's eerie hum, disorienting enemies unfamiliar with the phenomenon. Perhaps no natural feature was exploited more ruthlessly than the weather itself. The wall's winding path through the wind corridor of Gansu wasn't arbitrary. It followed routes where winter gusts reached hurricane force. Ming strategists recorded waiting for blizzards to launch counterattacks, knowing Mongol horses would be half buried in drifts. At Jiangyuan, the wall narrows suddenly into a winding gulch, creating a wind tunnel that could extinguish torches and freeze exposed skin within minutes. These natural augmentations explain why the wall's true length dwarfs its man-made portions. A recent LIDAR survey showed that for every mile of visible stone, There's another half-mile of tactical landscape, dry riverbeds turned kill zones, forests groomed as obstacles, even honeybee hives placed strategically to attack when disturbed. The wall didn't just stand against nature, it conspired with it, bending the very earth to the empire's will. To walk its length today is to traverse not just a wall, but an entire disguised battlefield where every cliff, stream, and thorn bush was once a soldier in silent service. Deep within the Great Wall's shadowy corridors lie vaults that time forgot, hidden armories sealed for centuries, their contents preserved like snapshots of ancient warfare. These weren't mere storage closets but strategic caches designed to resupply defenders during prolonged sieges, some so ingeniously concealed that modern archaeologists stumbled upon them by accident. In 2014, a team restoring a collapsed section near Jiayuguan Pass noticed something peculiar, a hollow echo beneath what appeared to be solid flooring. Probing further, they uncovered a chamber lined with rusted iron racks, each holding rows of repeating crossbows, a terrifying innovation that could fire 10 bolts in 15 seconds. Even more astonishing, the weapons were still loaded, their hemp bowstrings miraculously intact under layers of insulating sheep fat. The design of these chambers reveals military brilliance. Built into the wall's thickest sections, they were camouflaged behind false bricks that perfectly matched the surrounding masonry. Only initiates knew the trick. Certain stones had barely perceptible carvings indicating where to press. One such vault in Hebei province contained not just weapons but an entire field hospital. Ceramic jars still holding medieval painkillers made from poppy extract, silk bandages rolled tight as new, and even silver needles for acupuncture-based trauma care. The most chilling discovery, a ledger noting each item's placement in meticulous calligraphy, ending with the phrase, "forgotten but not forgiven," perhaps a vow from defenders who never returned to reclaim their stash. Gunpowder weapons found in these caches rewrite history. Prior to excavations at Badeling in 2017, scholars believed Chinese armies used gunpowder primarily for fireworks and siege explosives. Then workers uncovered a sealed tunnel containing 37 fire lances, early flamethrowers with bamboo barrels reinforced by iron hoops. Even more revolutionary was the Thunder Crash Bomb, a hollow clay sphere filled with shrapnel and gunpowder, its fuse holes still packed with twisted paper. Tests showed these crude grenades could shred flesh at 20 paces, proving the wall's defenders were experimenting with area denial weapons centuries before Europe adopted similar tactics. Some chambers held darker surprises. Beneath the Nine Eyes Tower in Shaanxi, archaeologists found a compartment lined with lead sheets, a safeguard against moisture containing ceramic flasks labeled "flying sand." Chemical analysis revealed a gruesome concoction, powdered lime mixed with crushed glass and wolfsbane poison, designed to be hurled into enemy eyes. Nearby lay bamboo tubes filled with bee bombs, nests of aggressive Asiatic honeybees sealed with wax that, when heated, would erupt over besiegers. These weren't just weapons, they were psychological tools turning nature itself against invaders. The most poignant discoveries humanized these stockpiles. A small niche near Datong held a single child-sized helmet beside a wooden toy horse, suggesting some garrisons brought families to the frontier. Another contained love letters tucked between arrow bundles, their ink faded but their promises achingly clear. "When the watchfires dim, I count the days until your return." These intimate traces remind us that behind every weapon was a life, someone who hoped these grim tools would buy them one more sunrise. Modern technology continues to unveil these hidden troves. Ground-penetrating radar recently detected anomalies near the Yumenguan Pass that may be undiscovered armories, their entrances buried under shifting sands. As each chamber yields its secrets, we gain not just artifacts but a visceral connection to the defenders who stood their ground against the tides of history, their weapons silent but their stories shouting across the centuries. The builders of the Great Wall left behind astonishing feats of engineering, yet remarkably few records of how they achieved them. While dynastic archives overflow with scrolls detailing tax revenues and court intrigues, the actual blueprints for the world's longest fortification have nearly all vanished. Only a handful of fragmented diagrams survive, tucked into marginal notes in military manuals or scribbled on the backs of imperial decrees. This absence isn't accidental, it was strategic. The wall's architects guarded their methods as closely as state secrets, knowing their defensive advantage relied on unpredictability. Today, archaeologists are left to decode these ancient innovations like detectives reconstructing a crime scene from scattered clues. One such clue emerged in 2011, when conservators repairing a Ming Dynasty watchtower in Hebei province discovered a brick stamped with strange markings, not Chinese characters, but precise geometric diagrams showing load-bearing angles and mortar layers. Detailed analysis revealed these were construction codes, a shorthand used by master builders to communicate techniques across generations. Similar stamps have since been found at 17 other sites, each revealing another piece of the puzzle. How rammed earth sections were compacted to withstand earthquakes, why certain curves dispersed cannon fire, even the exact moisture content needed for sticky rice mortar to bond properly. These weren't just notes, they were a lost language of engineering, pressed into the very materials they described. The most tantalizing glimpse into the wall's design process came from an unlikely source, a Miskapid Sutra. Buried in a Tibetan monastery's archives lay a Buddhist text with seemingly random numbers crowding its margins. It wasn't until 2019 that historians realized these were calculations for the wall's killing zones, mathematical models determining optimal distances between archery towers based on wind patterns and arrow trajectories. The monk who transcribed them likely served as a conscripted mathematician, smuggling knowledge onto sacred parchment to preserve it. Other fragments survive as oral traditions, like the Gansu villagers who still sing work songs encoding bricklaying rhythms, or the Hebei farmers whose ancestors' journals describe leveling techniques using water-filled trenches and floating markers. Modern technology has allowed us to reverse engineer what written records didn't preserve. Ground-penetrating radar reveals how foundations widen subtly beneath towers, redistributing weight across unstable terrain, a technique medieval European architects wouldn't grasp for centuries. Drone surveys show how strategic gaps in parapets align with seasonal wind patterns, creating natural vacuums that extinguish fire arrows mid-flight. Even the wall's color played a role. Spectral analysis proves lighter-colored stones in western deserts reflected heat, preventing expansion cracks, while darker northeastern sections absorbed sunlight to melt winter ice. Perhaps the greatest testament to the builders' ingenuity lies in what they didn't write down. At Jiaoshan Mountain, a section clings impossibly to a 70-degree slope with no visible supports. It wasn't until botanists noticed ancient juniper roots woven through the stones that the secret emerged. The builders cultivated living reinforcement, training trees to become natural rebar over decades. Elsewhere, archaeologists found bamboo time capsules buried at construction sites containing seedling sprouts labeled with planting dates. The wall wasn't just built for its era, it was designed to evolve, its blueprints written not on parchment but in the landscape itself. This absence of formal plans speaks to a deeper philosophy. The wall's architects understood that true mastery couldn't be fully captured in diagrams. It lived in the hands of artisans who mixed mortar by feel, in soldiers who memorized every foothold along their patrol routes, in farmers who repaired breaches with techniques passed down through whispers. What we call lost may have never been written at all, but instead lived as tactile wisdom, as fluid and adaptable as the frontier it guarded. The real blueprint wasn't ink on paper, it was the cumulative intelligence of generations who knew that some secrets are too powerful to entrust to words alone. Far from being an unbroken chain of imperial control, the Great Wall functioned at times like a living ledger, its sections changing hands as frequently as coins in a marketplace. During the turbulent periods between dynasties, fragmented warlords treated strategic passes and watchtowers as bargaining chips, trading them for alliances, supplies, or safe passage. Records from the Tang dynasty's collapse describe how regional strongmen would ceremonially gift wall sections to rivals, often with elaborate rituals involving broken arrows and sealed scrolls. One such document from 905 AD details a general exchanging 30 li of frontier wall for 5,000 cavalry horses, the agreement stipulating that the stones themselves served as collateral until payment was complete. Archaeologists have uncovered physical proof of these transactions. Near Datong, excavators found a trove of lead tablets marked with weight measurements and border descriptions, essentially medieval deeds. One reads, "From this tower to the dry riverbed, pledged to General Liu for grain stores through winter." Even more telling are the notches cut into certain watchtower staircases, matching surviving account books that tally sections leased to mercenary bands. The wall didn't just defend territory, it became territory itself, its ownership as fluid as the shifting loyalties of the era. The practice reached its peak during the Five Dynasties period, when wall sections near the Yellow River were traded so often that locals referred to them as the moving frontier. A recently deciphered mural in a Shanxi tomb depicts envoys using miniature wall models during negotiations, moving carved stone blocks across a map like pieces in a board game. Military logs from the period confirm this wasn't just symbolism. Control of specific towers dictated tax rights, with one garrison commander complaining in a letter that his stretch had changed masters thrice before the autumn harvest. Perhaps the darkest aspect of this barter system emerged in Mongolia, where carbon-dated skeletal remains near ruined wall sections show evidence of mass executions coinciding with recorded breaches. Forensic anthropologists identified a cluster of skeletons with bound wrists and uniform arrow wounds, likely prisoners exchanged as part of a wall-related treaty, then killed when terms were violated. These grisly discoveries align with oral histories describing blood-sealed agreements where control of a pass required hostages to be entombed within its foundations. The wall's role as currency wasn't limited to warfare. During famines, sections were mortgaged to merchant guilds in exchange for food shipments, their watchtowers temporarily repurposed as granaries. In Gansu province, archaeologists found bricks stamped with silk merchant logos, payments for the right to use wall passages as sheltered trade routes. The most surprising evidence comes from maritime records. Fujianese ship captains sailing to Southeast Asia would carry wall certificates as credit notes, backed by distant stretches of frontier they'd never seen. This system collapsed only when the Ming dynasty centralized power, branding wall trading as treason. But its legacy lingers in unexpected places. Modern property law in northern China still uses terms originally coined for wall transactions, and border disputes occasionally reference 800-year-old deeds unearthed by farmers. The greatest testament to this forgotten practice might be the wall's own scarred surface, every repaired breach and mismatched stone whispering stories of a time when the world's most solid border was as negotiable as a handful of rice. Certain stretches of the Great Wall hide a secret only visible from the sky, massive sections painstakingly engineered to mimic the sinuous curves of dragons, the crouched posture of tigers, even the spreading wings of phoenixes. These weren't whimsical flourishes but calculated acts of psychological warfare and tactical genius. Near Shanhai Pass, a 2-mile section coils like a dragon mid-strike, its claws forming protruding bastions perfect for flanking attacks. Ming dynasty generals knew the site would unsettle Mongol riders, whose culture revered dragons as omens, especially when this stone beast seemed to come alive at dawn, its undulating silhouette casting shifting shadows across the valley. The symbolism ran deeper than intimidation. Each animal shape served specific military functions. The White Tiger Wall in Hebei province angles its paws to create overlapping kill zones, forcing attackers into vulnerable bottlenecks. Archaeologists discovered its curved parapets act like acoustic mirrors, amplifying defenders' shouts to create the illusion of greater numbers. Meanwhile, the rarely visited Crouching Leopard section in Gansu uses optical tricks, narrowing wall walks and strategically placed towers make approaching forces appear closer than they are, triggering premature arrow volleys that exhaust enemy quivers before they reach striking distance. Recent drone surveys revealed even more sophisticated designs. A lost segment in Inner Mongolia forms a perfect tortoise shell when viewed from above, its hexagonal watchtowers distributing weight so efficiently that earthquakes preferentially topple surrounding villages while leaving the wall intact. Another in Liaoning province mimics a carp scales thousands of small stone projections that disrupt wind patterns, preventing siege ladders from gaining stable footing during the region's notorious gales. The most startling discovery came when researchers cross-referenced these shapes with ancient star charts. The Azure Dragon stretch near Datong aligns precisely with the corresponding constellation's position during the Ming Dynasty's founding year, likely an astrological declaration that heaven itself sanctioned the empire's borders. Nighttime excavations there uncovered luminescent quartz mixed into the mortar, causing certain towers to glow faintly along the celestial dragon's claws during specific lunar phases. Local folklore preserves knowledge modern archaeology is only now verifying. Shepherds near the Black Tortoise section have long avoided grazing flocks along its northern face, claiming the ground there remembers its shape and causes livestock to circle endlessly. Geological surveys proved them right. The wall's foundation stones create subtle magnetic anomalies that disrupt animal navigation. Just one more example of how the wall's builders didn't just borrow animal forms, they weaponized their very essence, turning myth into military science. These zoological blueprints reveal a startling truth: the Great Wall wasn't just built to withstand armies, but to unsettle minds. Every coiled serpent wall reminded invaders they battled not just men, but the land itself. Every tiger-shaped bastion proclaimed that crossing this line meant entering the maw of something primal. The stones didn't just divide kingdoms, they enacted an ancient drama where nature and empire merged into one relentless guardian. The Great Wall did more than divide empires, it may have reshaped the very climate around it. Modern geographers studying satellite data noticed something peculiar. The wall casts an invisible shadow across the landscape, not of darkness but of altered weather patterns. In certain regions, temperature differences of up to 3 degrees Celsius persist between the northern and southern faces, creating microclimates that have influenced vegetation for centuries. The wall's massive bulk acts like an artificial mountain range, disrupting wind currents and forcing moisture-laden air upward to form rain shadows. Farmers along the Hebei stretch have long known this, planting drought-resistant crops on the arid Mongolian side, while lush orchards flourish just south of the wall, following a divide as sharp as if drawn by nature itself. Deeper impacts emerge when examining dust deposition. The Gobi Desert's legendary storms, which once carried fertile loess soil across northern China, met an unexpected obstacle in the wall's western stretches. Core samples from lake beds show a dramatic drop in certain mineral deposits downwind of the wall after the Ming Dynasty expansions, evidence that the structure acted as a colossal filter, trapping airborne particles that would have otherwise enriched farmland. Some scholars argue this contributed to soil depletion and agricultural decline in regions like Shaanxi, forcing dynasties to expand southward for fertile land. The wall didn't just guard borders, it may have inadvertently redrawn the map of China's breadbaskets. The most controversial theory involves the wall-induced desertification hypothesis. Paleoclimatologists studying tree rings in Inner Mongolia identified a curious trend: accelerated drying along ancient wall sections coincided with periods of intensive construction. The explanation lies in the staggering resource demand. Entire forests were felled for scaffolding and fuel, while limestone kilns belched carbon dioxide for centuries. One calculation suggests Qin dynasty construction alone released over 50 million tons of CO2, a prehistoric industrial-scale impact. Compounding this, the removal of vegetation exposed fragile topsoils to erosion, potentially expanding the Gobai's reach. While other factors like natural climate cycles played roles, the wall's environmental footprint challenges our image of pre-industrial societies as inherently sustainable. Yet nature adapts in unexpected ways. Certain wall sections have become accidental wildlife corridors, their steep slopes too difficult for human development but perfect for endangered species like the North China leopard. In the mutilated, wild wall stretches left to crumble, ecologists found over 200 plant species thriving in the mortar cracks, a unique ecosystem nourished by centuries of accumulated bird droppings and decaying organic matter. Even the wall's controversial range shadow has beneficiaries. Rare drought-tolerant lichens found nowhere else bloom along its sun-baked northern face, their vibrant reds and yellows painting the stones like living murals. The ultimate irony, climate change now threatens the wall it may have helped create. Rising humidity in once arid regions is accelerating mortar decay, while intense storms, the very weather extremes some theories linked to ancient deforestation, wash away unprotected earthen sections. Conservationists face a dilemma. Repair methods using modern materials often disrupt these unintended ecosystems, yet leaving the wall to erode risks losing both cultural and natural heritage. Perhaps the lesson lies not in judging the past, but in recognizing how human ambition, however monumental, remains entangled with forces far greater than stone or empire. The wall stands as a reminder that when we reshape landscapes, they reshape us in return, often in ways no dynasty could foresee. High on the Great Wall's lonely watchtowers, soldiers didn't just scan for enemies, they read time itself in the stones beneath their feet. Certain strategic towers were engineered as colossal sundials, their stairways, parapets, and even arrow slits aligned to cast shadows that marked the hours with startling precision. At Gyeobaekgu Pass, the noonday summer sun strikes a precisely carved groove in the central flagstone, signaling the change of guard shifts. Step back and you'll see the entire tower floor is a giant clock face, with concentric circles indicating not just hours but solar terms critical for agriculture and military planning. These weren't simple markings, they were survival tools. Garrisons isolated for months relied on them to predict supply caravans, coordinate signal fires, and time patrols to avoid deadly sandstorms that followed daily patterns. The true genius emerges in the wall's astronomical alignments. 13 towers near Jinshanling form a straight line pointing directly to the North Star's position during the Ming Dynasty, a celestial anchor helping sentries reset their water clocks on cloudy nights. Even more impressive are the season stones, a series of monoliths embedded in western sections that interact with sunlight solstices. At dawn on the summer solstice, a beam of light pierces a triangular hole in Tower 42, illuminating a carved dragon's eye 50 yards away. Winter solstice sees the same light strike a tiger's head marker, signaling the start of the harsh season when raids were most likely. These weren't just ceremonial, they helped distant garrisons synchronize defenses across hundreds of miles without mechanical clocks. Archaeologists recently deciphered how the wall's timekeeping scaled from minutes to millennia. Narrow vertical notches in certain towers track the moon's 18-year metonic cycle, allowing commanders to anticipate bright nights advantageous for night attacks. The shadow stairs at Mushuniu record something even grander. Their steps are spaced so the midday sun's progression across them marks not just hours in a day, but the sun's gradual shift across the zodiac over centuries. This long-term calibration may explain how Ming astronomers predicted eclipses with such accuracy. The wall itself served as a backup astronomical instrument when court records were lost. Local farmers still use some of these ancient time markers, proving their enduring accuracy. In Hebei province, apricot orchards are planted according to shadow lines from nearby towers that indicate optimal spring planting days. Mongol herders across the border once timed their migrations by watching how autumnal light moved along the wall's battlements, a grudging testament to the precision of their rivals' engineering. Today, satellite imaging reveals the full sophistication. Entire wall segments in Ningxia form angles matching an ancient Chinese 60-year calendrical cycle, with watchtowers positioned like gears in a colossal stone clock. What seems like simple geometry held life or death consequences. Historical records from the 1500s describe a Tartar raid succeeding because cloud cover prevented soldiers from reading their sundial markers, delaying reinforcement signals by critical minutes. Another account tells of a general who noticed discrepancies between his water clock and the wall's shadow readings, leading to the discovery that earth tremors had slightly shifted the tower's alignment. This fusion of astronomy and stone speaks to a deeper philosophy. That time wasn't abstract but a tangible force woven into the landscape. The wall didn't just stand against enemies, it stood against entropy itself, its stones whispering the cosmos' rhythms to those who knew how to listen. Beneath the Great Wall's imposing battlements lay a clandestine network of escape routes so ingeniously hidden that many remain undiscovered to this day. These weren't crude bolt holes but meticulously engineered lifelines, designed to whisk commanders to safety during sieges or mutinies. At Jinshanling, restoration workers in 2019 accidentally triggered a mechanism by leaning on a seemingly ordinary brick, revealing a spiraling staircase that dropped 30 feet into a tunnel wide enough for 2 horses. The walls bore scorch marks from torches last lit 4 centuries ago, still faintly reeking of pine resin and urgency. The sophistication of these systems bordered on theatrical. Certain watchtowers housed panic rooms behind sliding stone panels, where officials could vanish mid-conversation, like the one at Gubeku Pass, with a floor that pivoted on greased stone bearings, its hinge mechanism powered by counterweights hidden in the walls. Archaeologists found similar designs in Ming-era palace architecture, suggesting imperial engineers repurposed royal escape tactics for frontier defense. The most elaborate examples feature ghost doors, false wall segments balanced so precisely that a child could push them open, yet indistinguishable from solid masonry when closed. Infrared scans at Mushuniu revealed these doors often led to vertical chutes lined with braided silk ropes, allowing rapid descents to hidden valley exits. Timing was everything. Escape tunnels frequently intersected with natural caves or rivers, ensuring pursuers would lose the trail. One such passage near Huangyogwan emptied into a whirlpool-prone stretch of the Bohai River, where pre-positioned boats waited beneath overhanging cliffs. Military manuals referenced thunder tunnels, escape routes rigged to collapse after use, their supports soaked in flammable oil that guards could ignite with a single arrow. The noise masked fleeing footsteps while burying enemies under tons of rubble, but the true brilliance lay in the psychology. Many escape systems doubled as traps. A tunnel at Jianku lured pursuers into a chamber where the ceiling's weight rested on a single soaked wooden pillar. Once the room filled with pursuers, their body heat would dry the timber, causing it to shrink and bring down the roof. Others exploited cultural taboos. The coffin passage near Datong twisted abruptly into a dead end filled with human remains, knowing superstitious enemies would retreat rather than disturb the dead. Recent LiDAR scans have revealed escape networks extending far beyond military needs, some tunneling under entire mountain ranges to secret granaries or private baths. This hints at a darker truth. The wall's defenders feared betrayal from within as much as invasion from without. The very stones whisper of paranoia and contingency plans of men who built exits before they built thrones. What's most remarkable isn't the engineering, but the human stories etched into these hidden corridors. At Jiayuguan, archaeologists found charcoal sketches of family homes scrawled along a tunnel wall, likely by a homesick officer marking days until rotation. Another passage concealed a small shrine with a broken teacup still holding centuries-old tea leaves, as if its last user paused to pray before fleeing into the night. These intimate traces transform cold stone into poignant memorials, reminding us that even the mightiest fortifications were ultimately manned by people with everything to lose. The escape route's greatest legacy may be what they didn't do: preserve empires. Dynasties still fell, betrayals still succeeded, yet their existence speaks to an unshakable will to survive, to engineer hope into the very bones of the wall. Today, as explorers uncover more of these secret passages, we don't just find clever mechanics, we uncover the quiet defiance of those who refuse to die without a fighting chance. Among the Great Wall's most haunting secrets are sections where the wind doesn't just blow, it sings. Stretches like the Jianku Whistling Wall in Beijing produce eerie, flute-like tones when breezes sweep through their arrow slits and crevices, creating an otherworldly chorus that locals once believed were the voices of long-dead centuries. But recent archaeological acoustics suggest these sounds weren't accidental. They were an ingenious form of natural surveillance, turning the wall itself into a colossal wind instrument tuned to detect danger. Engineers discovered that certain watchtowers were designed with precisely spaced ventilation holes and tapered stairwells that functioned like organ pipes. When wind speeds hit specific thresholds, typically those preceding sandstorms or blizzards, the entire structure would hum at frequencies between 120 and 150 Hz, a range known to trigger human anxiety. Ming Dynasty military logs describe guards using these tones to predict storms hours before clouds appeared, giving garrisons critical time to secure supplies. Even more remarkably, the pitch would shift when approaching cavalry disrupted airflow patterns, creating a primitive form of acoustic radar. A 2016 study proved the effect. Researchers recorded distinct harmonic changes when just 10 people walked past a singing section, validating ancient accounts of sentries hearing the wall's song darken before spotting enemies. The musical properties weren't limited to warning systems. In Ningxia province, archaeologists found towers with rows of suspended pottery jars embedded in their walls, early Helmholtz resonators that amplified specific frequencies to carry vocal commands over 3 times farther than normal shouting. Other sections used sound mirrors, curved parapets that focused whispers between sentry posts, allowing confidential messages to travel undetected by spies below. The most sophisticated examples appear near Datong, where the wall's rubble fill includes carefully graded pebbles that create Doppler-like pitch shifts when wind speeds change, effectively composing real-time audio weather reports. Folklore hints at even deeper acoustic strategies. Mongolian herders spoke of the Ghost Flute Wall, a stretch near the Yellow River where nighttime winds produced melodies resembling traditional Chinese military tunes, sowing confusion among invading forces. Recent spectrographic analysis confirmed this stretch's mortar contains traces of copper slag, which vibrates unusually when abraded by wind-borne sand, proof that builders may have engineered psychological warfare into the very materials. Modern attempts to replicate these effects reveal astonishing precision. At Jiaoshan Pass, restorers painstakingly recreated a collapsed tower's lattice windows only to discover they only sang when aligned to within 2 degrees of the original Ming blueprint. The builders had intuitively understood principles of fluid dynamics that wouldn't be formalized until the 19th century, crafting not just a barrier but an instrument played by the wind itself. Stand silent near these sections today as dusk falls, and you might hear the wall's last uncracked code, a lament for defenders long gone, carried on breezes they taught to speak. The Great Wall's watchtowers did more than scan for invaders. They formed the backbone of an imperial communication network so efficient, it could shuttle a message from the western deserts to the emperor's court in Beijing faster than a galloping horse could cover half the distance. Every third tower functioned as a relay station stocked with fresh mounts, where riders would pass scrolls like batons in a deadly serious race against time. Surviving records from the Ming Dynasty detail how urgent military dispatches could traverse over 200 miles in a single day, a speed unmatched anywhere in the medieval world. This wasn't just mail delivery, it was an ancient precursor to high-speed data transmission, with each stone watchtower acting like a server in a vast information grid. At the heart of this system were the Feiyi, or flying couriers, elite messengers trained from childhood in memory techniques that would put modern memory champions to shame. They could recite entire battle reports verbatim after one hearing, a failsafe against lost or intercepted documents. Archaeological digs at relay stations near Jiayuguan uncovered bamboo slips bearing fragmented messages, everything from grain shipment updates to coded troop movements, many still bearing grease stains from where riders had clutched them during frantic transfers. The stations themselves were marvels of efficiency. Stone troughs ensured horses could drink without stopping, while rotating teams of scribes stood ready to duplicate messages in triplicate using ink mixed with oyster shell powder for waterproofing. The true genius lay in the coding system. Rather than relying solely on written words, the Postal Service used a combination of colored flags, drumbeats, and even scented papers to prioritize messages. A dispatch wrapped in yellow silk and sealed with 5 wax dots indicated a border breach, triggering a chain reaction where every subsequent station would light signal fires visible to the next post 30 miles away. Archaeologists recently deciphered a set of numbered notches found on relay station walls. These corresponded to encryption keys changed weekly, allowing sensitive information to travel securely even if carriers were captured. Some stations housed living codebooks, orphan boys raised to memorize cipher systems too sensitive to commit to paper. Speed came at a brutal cost. Excavated skeletons of couriers show grotesquely enlarged thigh bones and spinal deformities from years of non-stop riding, their teeth often worn down from biting leather straps during blizzards. One particularly poignant grave near Datong contained a rider buried with his horse, the animal's leg bones showing stress fractures from covering nearly 3,000 miles annually. Military logs described the 3 lifespans of Feiyi. Those who survived 5 years were said to have lived as long as 3 ordinary men, their bodies aged far beyond their years by relentless service. Beyond military use, the postal network became an unexpected social leveler. Merchant guilds could purchase red tallies, permitting limited message delivery, while examination candidates received discounted rates to send essays to capital graders. The system even birthed an early form of postal banking. Silver taels could be deposited at one station and withdrawn at another using chop-marked bamboo slips, a convenience that fueled cross-border commerce. A cache of Ming-era love letters discovered in a Shaanxi relay station attic reveals how the service connected families across impossible distances, their ink blotted where tears had fallen 8 centuries ago. This information highway had vulnerabilities. Bandits learned to ambush carriers at predictable river crossings, leading to the creation of decoy runners and maze-like detours through hidden valleys. Weather posed a constant threat. A single snowstorm in 1583 delayed New Year's edicts to frontier garrisons, triggering panic when celebrations failed to commence on schedule. Yet when the system worked, it knit together an empire of staggering diversity. A report of Tibetan unrest could reach Beijing before local officials finished their morning tea, while harvest forecasts from the Yangtze Delta guided military provisioning decisions thousands of miles away. Modern experiments prove just how advanced the network was. Historians retracing a courier route from Dunhuang to Beijing with period-accurate horses and gear completed the 1,300-mile journey in 17 days, only 3 days slower than Ming records claim for emergency dispatches. The real difference: today's riders had GPS and modern veterinary care, while their ancient counterparts navigated by starlight and treated colic with herbal poultices. What appears at first glance as simple messenger work reveals itself as a masterpiece of logistics, one that allowed a pre-industrial civilization to administer territories larger than the Roman Empire at speeds Europe wouldn't match until the Pony Express. Perhaps the most telling legacy lives on in language. The Chinese word for news literally translates as flying message, while modern courier services still use the feiyi symbol, a running horse with scrolls streaming behind it. The wall's postal network didn't just move information, it shaped how an entire culture conceived of connection across distance, proving that even the mightiest barrier could also be a conduit. For centuries, whispers have swirled about forgotten vaults hidden deep within the Great Wall chambers, crammed with imperial gold, jade seals, and stacks of silk scrolls documenting lost dynastic secrets. These aren't just campfire tales. Official Ming-era records mention dragon storehouses built into strategic sections, their locations known only to a handful of trusted eunuchs. One surviving ledger from 1492 details the wall's western terminus at Jiayuguan receiving 7 chests of blue and white porcelain, 200 jin of silver ingots, and 1 jade suit for the guardian spirit, all sealed inside a vault beneath the pass's foundation. The same document ominously notes that the mason team responsible for the chamber's construction was reassigned to the eastern frontier, a euphemism historians suspect meant execution to preserve secrecy. Modern technology has only fueled these legends. Ground-penetrating radar scans near Beijing in 2014 revealed an anomalous void 30 feet below the wall's foundation, a perfectly rectangular space nearly 60 feet long. When archaeologists attempted to drill a borehole for further investigation, their equipment struck something metallic before the cavity abruptly flooded with groundwater, suggesting ancient countermeasures were still active. Local folklore claims these chambers are protected by drowning traps, ingeniously engineered channels connecting to underground rivers that flood at the slightest disturbance. The most tantalizing clues come from accidental discoveries. A farmer plowing near the Wild Wall section of Jiankou in 1987 unearthed a stone slab carved with a cryptic inventory: 36 pearl crowns, 81 golden tablets, 10 chests of foreign coins. Authorities later identified it as a Qin dynasty cargo manifest, but the treasures themselves remain missing. More recently, a landslide in Gansu exposed a hidden alcove containing 9 perfectly preserved lacquer boxes, all empty, their interiors lined with fabric impressions matching known imperial silk patterns. Were these hastily cleared treasure caches or deliberate decoys? Treasure hunters have risked everything chasing these rumors. In 1935, American adventurer Theodore Morden vanished while searching for what he called Genghis Khan's wall hoard, leaving behind only a diary describing a half-buried tower filled with golden deer statues. Decades later, Chinese archaeologists found the structure he'd referenced, but its chamber contained nothing but a single silver hairpin and a pile of rodent bones. Meanwhile, Mongolian herders still speak of the Ghost Vault, a lost tunnel near the Alksad Desert where stolen Yuan dynasty relics were supposedly hidden during the Ming overthrow. Satellite thermal imaging in 2019 detected a subsurface heat signature matching the description, but sandstorms halted excavations before the mystery could be solved. The most compelling evidence might lie in the wall's very architecture. Certain watchtowers feature unusual hollow pillars too narrow for stairs but perfect for hiding scroll cases. Others have flagstone floors with perfectly circular grooves that could rotate to reveal subterranean compartments. During renovations at Mushiniu, workers discovered a bricked-up alcove behind an altar, its walls scorched black. The only object inside, a tiny bronze key, its teeth shaped like the characters for 9 and eternity, a design matching long-lost palace strongboxes described in Ming inventories. Whether these legends are fact or fantasy, they reveal a deeper truth about the wall's purpose. Beyond defense, it functioned as the empire's ultimate safe deposit box, a 3,000-mile-long vault where dynasties stashed not just wealth but their very legitimacy. Every missing jade seal represents a broken chain of imperial authority. Every rumored golden tablet could rewrite our understanding of frontier diplomacy. Until these chambers are found, if they exist at all, the Great Wall keeps its most valuable secrets buried deepest. The Great Wall's stones whisper secrets of a lost mathematical language, one where every angle, curve, and slope was calculated not with calculators but with abacuses and celestial observations. Take the deadly zigzag near Simmatai, where the wall's abrupt 45-degree turns create overlapping kill zones. These weren't random. Ming engineers used a system called Gaogu calculus, their version of the Pythagorean theorem, to ensure archers in each successive tower had clean sight lines while invaders remained trapped in crossfire. Archaeologists recently found bamboo scrolls buried near Badeling detailing these calculations, including corrections for arrow drop over distance and wind deflection concepts Europeans wouldn't formalize until Galileo. The precision extends to the wall's very foundations. In the flood-prone Liaoning section, watchtowers stand on hexagonal bases with sides angled at exactly 60 degrees, a shape proven by modern fluid dynamics to minimize erosion. Even more astonishing are the singing steps staircases where treads are spaced according to harmonic ratios. When cavalry approached, the vibrations of hoofbeats would resonate through these intervals, amplifying the sound like a giant wooden xylophone to alert defenders. Recent laser scans revealed some inclines are engineered at a consistent 14-degree slope, the maximum gradient a laden soldier could climb without slipping, calculated through trial and error over generations. But the true mathematical marvel lies in the wall's fractal-like redundancy. From afar, its winding path seems chaotic, but fractal analysis shows repeating patterns at every scale. Certain curves recur every 5.8 miles, the exact distance a Ming signal arrow could travel. Towers cluster in prime-numbered groups 3, 5, 7 to complicate enemy head counts, while arrow slits follow Fibonacci sequences for optimal spacing. This wasn't superstition, it was sophisticated operational research, encoding battlefield logistics into the architecture itself. The builders even accounted for the curvature of the earth. At Jayayuguan, where the wall stretches into the flat go-by, engineers subtly raised the foundation by 2 centimeters every lie about 500 meters, a correction ensuring sentries could maintain visual contact across the horizon. They achieved this without levels or theodolites, using water-filled trenches and shadow poles to measure infinitesimal elevation changes. Perhaps the most chilling application of math was psychological. The Fear Heights near Huangyogwan use forced perspective parapets that appear 3 times taller from the northern invader's side due to angled brickwork and concealed base steps. Ming tacticians' new terror was as potent as arrows. Their calculations weaponized perception itself. Today, drone surveys continue uncovering new layers of numerical intent, like the recently discovered pi section, where a 365-meter stretch contains precisely 365 turns, each aligning with solar terms in the agricultural calendar. These weren't just construction techniques, they were acts of mathematical devotion. The wall's builders didn't merely stack stones, they composed a symphony of numbers across mountains, proving that even in warfare, beauty and precision could be the deadliest weapons of all. The Great Wall was never just stone and mortar. It was a carefully crafted stage for political theater, where emperors manipulated perception as deftly as they commanded armies. Each dynasty reinvented the wall's mythos to suit their agenda, turning rubble into rhetoric and watchtowers into propaganda. Take the Qin dynasty's earliest chronicles, which claimed their wall stretched beyond the clouds, despite archaeological evidence showing vast sections were little more than packed earth berms. The exaggeration wasn't accidental, it was strategic inflation designed to terrify nomadic tribes and awe subjects into submission. Emperors understood that a wall's true power lay not in its height but in the stories told about it. The Ming dynasty perfected this art of illusion. Imperial painters depicted the wall as a seamless dragon of stone, ignoring the crumbling Han-era ruins they'd repurposed. Court poets spun tales of a rampart so high birds grew weary climbing it, though most sections stood barely 25 feet tall. Even more cunning was the selective mapping. Official scrolls showed the wall extending into mythical territories, visually annexing lands the empire didn't truly control. When the Yongle emperor needed to legitimize his usurped throne, he staged elaborate inspections where laborers hastily whitewashed sections he'd visit, creating the illusion of unbroken grandeur. But the wall's symbolism cut both ways. Rebel leaders like Lai Zicheng deliberately targeted its weakest points during uprisings, not for tactical advantage, but to shatter the Ming's carefully cultivated image of invincibility. When his forces breached the wall at Jiang Pass in 1644, they didn't just cross a border, they demolished a psychological barrier, proving the emperor's eternal bulwark could crumble like any other. Dynasties that followed learned from this lesson. The Qing, themselves of nomadic origin, downplayed the wall's military role, instead repurposing it as a symbol of cultural unity, their way of legitimizing rule over both sides of the barrier. The propaganda machine extended beyond China's borders. European emissaries received illustrated scrolls showing the wall bristling with cannons it didn't yet possess, while Tibetan monks were given tapestries depicting it as a Buddhist mandala protecting sacred land. Even casualty reports were manipulated. A single guard tower collapse might be recorded as the earth-swallowing barbarians, transforming tragedy into divine intervention. Modern satellite imagery reveals the stark contrast between these boasts and reality. Entire, fortified sections were just painted facades on cliff faces, visible only from specific angles to impress passing delegations. Perhaps the most enduring political fiction was the wall's alleged uniformity. Emperors insisted their version was the definitive one, systematically erasing earlier dynasties' contributions. Qin Shi Huang's chroniclers claimed he built the wall anew, omitting that 60% followed pre-existing Zhou dynasty fortifications. Centuries later, Mao Zedong would flip the script, framing the wall as a collective achievement of the peasantry despite his own regime using forced labor to restore sections for tourist propaganda. The stones became a Rorschach test. Conquerors saw dominion, revolutionaries saw oppression, and modern politicians see a convenient backdrop for speeches about unity. These manipulations reveal an uncomfortable truth: the Great Wall's greatest strength wasn't stopping armies, but shaping minds. Its carefully curated image allowed emperors to project power they didn't always possess, turning a patchwork of frontier defenses into an icon that outlasted every dynasty that built it. Today, when we see its serpentine silhouette, we're not just looking at a wall, we're seeing 20 centuries of political spin, each layer more carefully constructed than the bricks themselves. When machine guns and fighter planes rendered ancient fortifications obsolete, the Great Wall found new purpose in the age of modern warfare. During Japan's brutal invasion of China in the 1930s, nationalist forces transformed crumbling Ming dynasty watchtowers into machine gun nests. Their arrow slits widened to accommodate Browning automatic rifles. In the mountain passes near Beijing, engineers dynamited sections of the wall to create tank traps, funneling Japanese columns into pre-sighted artillery kill zones. The same stones that once deflected arrows now absorbed mortar shells. One bullet-pocked tower near Shan Hai Pass still bears a fading chalk inscription from 1933, "Hold here until reinforcements come." They never did. But the wall's most surprising military role came during the Cold War, when both Chinese and Soviet troops covertly reactivated its strategic high points. Declassified CIA maps from 1962 mark several Ming watchtowers near the Mongolian border as Listening Post Delta, where American signals intelligence suspected hidden radar equipment. Satellite imagery from the era shows unnatural straight lines cut through overgrown sections, likely helicopter landing pads for rapid deployment. In the Gobi Desert, Soviet survey teams even repurposed Han Dynasty ruins as geodesic markers for missile targeting, their ancient alignment fortuitously matching Cold War strategic axes. The most haunting adaptations were psychological. During the Sino-Soviet border clashes of 1969, Chinese propaganda films showed PLA soldiers standing sentry on the wall's battlements, a deliberate visual link between modern defenders and their imperial predecessors. Meanwhile, Soviet radio broadcasts claimed their armored divisions could leap the ancient barrier in hours, turning the wall into a symbolic chess piece in a global standoff. Both sides understood its power as a propaganda tool. A single photograph of troops atop the wall carried more weight than volumes of diplomatic rhetoric. Local accounts reveal even darker repurposing. In Inner Mongolia, herders speak of a section near the Agina Banner where underground chambers served as temporary nuclear storage in the 1970s, their thick stone walls ideal for shielding radioactivity. Declassified documents confirm the PLA considered using the wall's tunnel networks as fallout shelters during the Cuban Missile Crisis, though radiation tests later proved the limestone mortar would have offered little real protection. Today, the wall's martial legacy lingers in unexpected ways. Satellite early warning systems still use its linear geometry for calibration, while special forces train in its tunnels to acclimate to confined combat. Near the North Korean border, certain watchtowers have been quietly retrofitted with motion sensors not to stop invaders this time, but to detect defectors. The stones have witnessed centuries of warfare, but their most sobering lesson might be this: no matter how technology changes, humanity's need for barriers real and imagined remains constant. From bones mixed into the mortar to celestial alignments hidden in its stones, the Great Wall of China isn't just a barrier, it's a living archive of secrets. Every brick holds whispers of brutality and brilliance, of workers buried anonymously beneath the ramparts and engineers who bent nature itself to their will. The wall's true length isn't 4,000 miles, it's 13,000. Twisted with tunnels that turned it into a death trap for invaders. Ghostly echoes still linger where sentries listened for enemies through singing stones, and painted remnants hint at a monument once as colorful as the dynasties it defended. Even its failures rewrite history. The wall fell not just to armies but to corruption, climate, and the weight of its own ambition. What makes these truths so startling isn't just their scale, it's how they shatter myths we've clung to for centuries. No, astronauts can't see it from space. No, Marco Polo never mentioned it. And no, the wall wasn't invincible. Its greatest weakness was always human nature. From the million lives spent building it to the generals who sold its gates for gold, this wasn't a flawless marvel. It was a mirror reflecting the desperation and ingenuity of every era it survived. Now it's your turn. Which revelation left you rethinking everything? Was it the acoustic traps that turned wind into a weapon, the star maps etched into its path? Or the chilling legend of workers sealed alive inside the stones? Drop your answer below and let's keep unraveling history's greatest puzzles together. Don't forget to subscribe. We're just scratching the surface of the past's deepest mysteries, and the next one might rewrite history all over again.